Bonjour! Thank you for joining me today for Princess Storytime. Today I'll be reading from 50 famous fairy stories. And today's story is Rumplestiltzkin. In a certain kingdom, there once lived a poor miller who had a very beautiful daughter. She was shrewd and clever, and the miller was so vain and proud of her that he told the king of the land that his daughter could spin gold out of straw. Now this king was very fond of money, and when he heard the miller's boast, he ordered the girl to be brought before him. Then he led her to a room filled with straw, gave her a spinning wheel, and said, "All this must be spun into gold before morning, or you forfeit your life." In vain the poor maiden declared that she could do no such thing. The door was locked. She sat down and began to weep over her hard fate. Suddenly the door opened, and a droll little man hobbled in. "Good day to you, my good lass. Why are you weeping?" he asked her. "Alas," she answered, "I must spin this straw into gold, and I do not know how." "What will you give me?" asked the man, "to do it for you?" "My necklace," replied the maiden. The little man took her at her word and set himself down to the wheel. Round and round it went, merrily, merrily, and presently all the straw was spun into gold. When the king came and saw the gold, he was greatly pleased, but his heart still grew more greedy, and he again shut the miller's daughter in a room with an even larger pile of straw. She did not know what to do, so she sat down and began to weep again. Presently the same little man opened the door and said, "What will you give me to do your task?" "The ring on my finger," the maiden replied. So her little friend took the ring and began to work at the wheel. By morning, all the straw was spun into gold. The king was delighted to see all this glittering treasure, but he was still not satisfied. He took the miller's daughter into a still larger room filled with straw and said, "If all this is spun into gold by morning, you shall be my queen." As soon as the girl was alone, the dwarf came in. "What will you give me to spin the straw into gold for you this third time?" "I have nothing left to give you," the maiden said sadly. "Then promise me," said the little man, "that you will give me your first child when you are the queen." "That may never be," thought the miller's daughter, and as she knew no other way to get her task done, she promised the little man what he asked. Immediately he began to spin. When the king came in the next morning and found all the room filled with gold, he kept his promise and married the miller's daughter. They lived together happily enough. With the birth of her first child, the queen was filled with joy and forgot all about the little man and her promise. One day he came to her chamber and reminded her of it. She was grieved at the thought of giving up her child and offered him all the treasures of the kingdom instead, but she pleaded in vain. The little man did not want treasure. At last her tears softened him, and he said, "I will give you 3 days' grace. If during that time you can tell me my name, you shall keep your child." The queen lay awake all night thinking of all the names she had ever heard. In the morning she dispatched messengers all over the land to inquire of new ones. The next day when the little man came, she began with Throckmorton, Florinzel, Paramund, and all the unusual names she could remember. But to all of them he said, "That's not my name." The second day she began with all the comical names she had heard of, Bandy-legs, Pigeon-toes, and the like, but to every one of them the dwarf still said, "That's not my name." The third day one of the messengers came back to report, "I heard of no other name, but yesterday, as I was climbing a high hill among the trees of the forest, where the fox and the hare bid each other good night, I saw a little hut, and before the hut burned a fire, and around the fire a funny little man danced on one leg and sang, 'Today I brew, and then I'll bake. Tomorrow the queen's child I'll take. The queen will never win this game, for Rumplestiltzkin is my name.' When the queen heard this, she jumped for joy. Soon her little visitor came and said, 'Now, lady, what is my name?' 'Is it John?' she asked. 'No.' 'Is it Tom?' 'No.' 'Well then, can your name be Rumplestiltzkin?' 'The witches told you, the witches told you,' shrieked the little man, and in a rage he stamped his right foot so hard into the floor that he was forced to take hold of it with both hands to pull it out. Off he rushed, and he has never been seen again from that day to this. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon. Au revoir.